Hello once again, I'm Cosmic, and today we're going to be taking a look at Dying Light, a first-person zombie survival game developed by Techland and published by Warner Brothers. Now this isn't Techland's first time out with first-person zombie games, as they were the developers behind the Dead Island series. The Dead Island games, while they were certainly fun at times, suffered from many problems. And while there are many comparisons to be drawn between Dying Light and Dead Island, Dying Light has shared many of the fundamental issues that plagued the Dead Island games. Dying Light is set in the large city under quarantine, after an outbreak of a virus very similar to rabies that basically turns people into zombies. I know, it's all horrifically unoriginal. The protagonist you play gets airdropped into the city after the outbreak. Your mission is to find a rogue agent of the GRE, which is the Global Relief Effort, and recover a classified file which seems to be relevant to the outbreak virus. You meet many survivors early on, including many athletes who were there for an Olympic-style event in the city, which is the narrative reason why they are also good at parkour and running away and such. Graphically, the game is superb. The multiple environments look great, even while there are some texture issues and there's some textures that aren't as detailed as I would have liked. The overall colour tone and detail is of a pretty high standard. Even on older graphics cards, the game will run to a decent standard. The footage being shown here is from an Nvidia 660, with most of the settings still turned on. The trick is to set the view distance to a minimum to stop the frame rate issues. But even at minimum, I actually don't think it affects the game in a negative way at all. You can still see pretty damn far. While the game in terms of stability is overall pretty average, there are quite a few bugs here and there. I myself randomly went from being on the top of a tower to suddenly being underwater under the level. It was a bit silly. Not to mention the fact that the game has crashed several times, but it does have an autosave system so you won't lose your progress. However, whether your game crashes or you die, you will be respawned at a safe zone, which can end up being quite far away from your original location. Your character has both a health and a stamina bar. Your stamina will deplete in combat, and once it's down, you'll have to back off to allow it to regenerate, or else your character will be slow and vulnerable to attack. Sprinting is limited too, where you will have periods of your character slowing down and breathing heavily. It doesn't punish you too much, however during the night being chased by volatiles it can mean death. I think the biggest thing I was impressed with Dying Light, coming in after having played Techland's previous games, was the improvement to the combat. Due to the combat being more melee focused than ranged, it sometimes requires for the combat to have a mix of mechanical, responsive, visual and audible feedback. Something that plagued the Dead Island series was that the combat did not have good feedback. Hitting enemies in those games looked and felt weak. It seemed as if there was no real impact to hits in the Dead Island games, whereas Dying Light's combat is tight. Hitting a walker around the head with a baseball bat looks and feels impactful. Everything from the movement, hit detection and fluidity of the overall system has massively improved. Nothing feels more satisfying than completely decapitating a zombie with an electrified sword in one hit. One thing I do like is that there is a degree of tactics involved when facing a group of zombies. You can use traps that are located all around the map to distract and kill. You can use items such as firecrackers or flares to distract walkers as they are drawn to sound and light. Using the environment and items becomes pivotal in your survival in engagements, particularly at night. While there are guns in the game, you do get punished for using them. Ammo is rare to come by, and the sound of a gunshot will not only attract walkers, but more dangerous volatiles too. Guns are best used to deal with the various human enemies in the game, as they are extremely dangerous. Humans, unlike zombies, can easily dodge, strafe and block incoming melee attacks, and when you're facing multiple human enemies alone, fighting them all off with a knife is a challenge at best. Using your guns for human enemies is the best way to ensure survival, especially when they're using big guns also. Now, like I've mentioned, one of Dying Light's core mechanics is the day and night cycles. During the day, while walkers are still a threat, mutated zombies known as volatiles are not in play, but they can be found in dark areas. The day is when you want to get most of your travelling and quests done, as it's much safer to travel by light. At night, however, it's a different story. Volatiles are out in force all over the city. They are quick and they are dangerous. Fighting anything other than walkers at night is a big no. Volatiles will kill you at night in a couple of hits and they are damn strong. You are very much the prey at night, and it pays to stick to the rooftops and not linger in one place for too long. While going out at night is much more deadly, there are quests that involve going out at night, so there is an incentive to do this. So if you're thinking you can avoid it completely, you definitely can't. While the deaths that you have at night and the subsequent loss of survivor points can be frustrating, it is in my opinion a kind of fantastic experience. The thrill of being chased, the tense survival moments of hiding are done superbly. You certainly get that kind of tense, panicked feel that I haven't felt in a zombie game since playing probably Left 4 Dead for the first time. Now, as you go about completing missions and going about your general killing and running away, you'll earn points towards 3 skill trees. The Survivor tree allows you to access new skills that will help you in all aspects of the game, from fighting to travelling. The Agility tree focuses on the more physical aspects, such as running or give you new abilities to make it easier to manoeuvre the landscape, or indeed, just drop kicking zombies. Power gives you the skills that affect your fighting, whether it be passives like increased melee damage or active abilities such as a power blow. The progression in the game is pretty fluid, and it's fairly well paced, and even while you gain your abilities and it makes you more lethal, the threat from the zombies and the volatiles and the humans does remain constant, so it's always got that difficulty there. Now clearly, as you can see, the way you travel in the game is by foot. The parkour element of the game works very well and is very similar to the Mirror's Edge system. Unlike a ledge detection system from a game like Assassin's Creed, where your character just needs to be close to a ledge to cling on, in Dying Light you must be looking at where you want to scramble over to do it. This makes the experience more immersive and realistic, which is in my opinion really good. It forces you to take care when sprinting away to make sure you aren't mindlessly jumping in any direction, or that you don't run yourself into a situation that you can't effectively climb out of. The ledge detection works very well, and I have rarely encountered a missing ledge that I felt I should have clung onto. You can also make use of zip lines where they are available, and later on in the game you'll gain access to a grapple hook, which changes things greatly. With the grapple hook, you can traverse long distances very easily and get up high very quick. Though it does have an immersion breaking problem. At the moment in which you jump from a very high place that you would normally die from when you hit the floor, if in mid-fall you use the grapple hook and point it at the floor, you'll grapple towards the floor and land perfectly safe with no damage, which is kind of a bit of a cheat. In between the streets of blood and zombies are safe zones. Safe zones are essentially places that it doesn't matter whether it's night or day, it is safe to sleep, resupply and talk to NPCs. Safe zones are where you'll be getting 99% of your quests, and some have quartermasters where you can get free supplies. Otherwise you will have to pay the traders a visit and pay in cash. I like the way that the developers have made some of the safe zones into little survivor communities, and that as you go along in the game and complete quests, your actions in those quests can have people move around or change some of the scenery. It's a classic way of presenting the illusion that you're changing the world, even though you're really not, but they pull it off actually pretty well in the game. There are a wide range of quests and challenges available, and the entire system of quests feels cloned from similar open world games. There are also airdrops, which essentially are little optional side quests that require you to secure medical supplies and flares. NPC factions will also be after these, so you may encounter hostiles other than zombies at the drop sites. Once you have the goods, you'll need to deliver them to the quartermaster, and you'll receive a hefty boost in survivor points. Something that has definitely been passed on from the Dead Island games is the weapon and the loot system. Weapons all have stats such as handling, damage and durability. Each weapon has several rarity types, such as the standard police rifle all the way up to the epic police rifle. Prolonged use of a weapon will cause it to break. You can repair the weapons a few times, but each time takes up a repair slot, and once all of those have gone, the weapon is then useless. However, there are plenty of weapons to be had in the game, and as you level up your power, agility and survivor rank and skills, basically more weapons and different variations of weapons become available in the game. Through the crafting system, you can use blueprints and upgrades to craft new weapons that have effects such as electric damage, fire damage and more. The crafting system itself is fairly simple and easy to use and just requires going on one menu. Once you have the blueprint, all you need are the required components to craft it. The world is full of weapons and components to find, and the player has the ability to ping their nearby radius to detect anything that can be interactive with. Some chests and doors will need to be lockpicked, which works identical to Skyrim's lockpicking system, where you essentially just turn the lockpick to find the sweet spot until it opens. You can obtain blueprints for crafting by searching the world, as well as for quest rewards. The whole looting system works very similar to the Dead Island system, and it was always fun in the Dead Island games, and it's fun here. Techland have kept the kind of RPG elements from their previous titles in the game while removing some others, allowing for a more immersive action-based game with the good points of an RPG loot system. Now let's move on to the story. So the story of Dying Light is pretty unoriginal and cliche. While there are some funny, interesting characters in there, and most of the voice acting isn't terrible, overall the writing is not that inspired. There are often cheesy, unessential moments of conversation, and then there's suddenly complete jumps in the character's story and relationships to the point of a guy that you barely even know dies, and then he was referred to as being your close friend. I'm sorry, but at what point did he become a close friend? We talked like 4 times. The way the story is told, and indeed the quest system overall, gives the game a very much a kind of Far Cry 4 with zombies feel, which I didn't particularly enjoy. I found the plotline interesting enough to go through it, but in my opinion, it was the combination of good combat, survival and parkour that kept me playing and not the story. I certainly believe that had the mechanics of the game not been fun, I would have not stuck around for the story alone. I mean, the bloody story had me climbing a radio tower at one point, for goodness sake. I was having bad flashbacks from Kirat. I was nearly waiting for Pagan Min to start yammering on at me over the radio. It almost had me thinking that it was a Ubisoft game for a moment. Game developers really need to learn that things like parkouring are fun, but the slow, tedious process of climbing high towers is not. The game does feature 2 multiplayer modes. One is co-op, so you can play with a friend, though the game doesn't acknowledge that another player is playing, so it's kind of annoying in that regard, but it does work fine and it is fun kind of killing zombies with a friend. The other is Be a Zombie, whereby you enter a friend's game as a zombie and try and hunt them down and kill them. It's basic multiplayer, and while it is fun for a time, there's nothing there that will hold you for particularly long periods of time. Overall, and in conclusion, I will say this about Dying Light. It held me. It had its problems, as many games do, but it was fun enough that I kept coming back. The game is fun, and in fact I would go as far as to say that it's the best zombie game I have played in years. It's immersive, running from rooftop to rooftop is fun, the combat is tight, and while the narrative and indeed the mechanics are unoriginal, they are executed for the most part very well. It's what the original Dead Island should have been, but wasn't, and I certainly would recommend it, particularly if you're a fan of the zombie apocalypse genre, and it probably is and probably will remain to be one of the best zombie games out there for some time. I am, however, personally now done with all these bloody zombie games. Please, developers, can we have something original? Thanks for watching, everyone. Please do subscribe if you enjoyed the video. If you enjoy my work overall, please head over to my Patreon and support me there, and follow me on Twitter, and I'll see you next time.